Who Wants to Podcast today? You are experiencing the Tom Kelly Show. I am podcasting from traffic on the Cross Island Parkway, heading into the Long Island Expressway at exit 30 on the Cross Island Parkway. And this is a kind of a douchey road. I almost wish I had the second camera to show you. This is where it's one of those things where the honest people spend an hour waiting online in the right lane, waiting to merge onto the Long Island Expressway. And then the douchebaggy people will go along the middle lane, trying to cut the people who are waiting on the line. Now, people will say, oh, but Tom, what about the zipper? I don't disagree with the zipper. I don't disagree with the zipper theory, but then there's always that third type of person who crosses on the double lines. And that's where I think we should have like those Iranian cluster bombs laid out where, okay, if you want a zipper, fine, but if you don't get there by the double line, boom, you cross on the double line, there's a minefield, you explode. I may even pause the podcast when I get up close just to show you what I'm talking about. And there you go. When you talk about the things I say on this podcast that will prevent me from running for public office, could you imagine me running for Congress and then somebody looking up old podcast clips and saying, Mr. Kelly, did you ever talk about wanting to put cluster munitions on the side of the Long Island Expressway? And I'd be like, yes. Yes, I did. But then, you know what? Part of me is thinking, there's no punishment for the douchebags on Long Island. And then we just all become douchier. The douchebags on Long Island, the guys who drive on the shoulder of the road as if it's an extra lane for traffic, the guys who cut across the double line after you've been waiting in the third right lane for an hour, the people who bring 11 items in the 10 items or less lane at the grocery store. Long Island douchebags. It's just, I don't know. But then again, you also have to love the douchebags, because when I go somewhere else, I'm the douchebag. Like I was in the city today, talking in a tone of voice not much louder than what I'm talking in right now. And there was a woman who you could tell she missed her pills. But she kept giving, like, I got shushed in a deli. You know, I mean, only in the Upper West Side and by a crazy Caucasian Karen would a guy like me get shushed in a deli. I'm not even like a crazy Long Island deli guy. Like I'm not there like, hey, bro, politics, bro, racist comment. I was talking to theater kids. I was talking to theater and band kids in this tone of voice. So to the lady who shushed me at the Lenwich on the Upper West Side, ah! So I don't know where my energy is. Oh, by the way, first day out with the top off the Jeep. I do love driving this part of the road. I love coming from outside. I love driving across the Throgs Neck Bridge. When you drive across the Throgs Neck Bridge, every Long Islander gets a feeling that they're almost home. And that trip almost home means you're either 20 minutes or 2 hours away. We're podcasting from the right lane of traffic. Last time I did this show, I was talking about the Tom Kelly theory of Instagram, that the future of Instagram and social media influencers is going to be people making 3% off of $1 million sales, real estate agents. That the future of entertainment in America is going to be twerking real estate agents. And somehow, within the last week or two, my local Instagram algorithm that I have been known for making content for, the Long Island algorithm, has become clogged with really mediocre real estate agents doing more mediocre content. Like me, I only put out like 4 or 5 pieces of content a week. There are people putting out a lot of bad things with a lot of town names, and it's clogging up the algorithm and bringing down my numbers. And here's my deal, folks. If you see a real estate agent doing TikToks, doing podcasts, that's a real estate agent with no houses to sell. Every time you see a real estate agent on social media doing a social media video, that's a real estate agent not selling houses. I feel like real estate agents is the ultimate cockroach career. Worse than lawyers, worse than TV agents. They just all are rats going to the same piece of cheese. If you meet a person who starts real estate over the age of 40, that's a person who failed at something else. How do I know? I'm thinking about being a real estate agent. You know, because you're right. Because honestly, I have a show at McGuire's Comedy Club in Bohemia, owned by governors, across from MacArthur Airport. It's a great comedy club, sort of tucked off of Veterans Highway, behind the Applebee's and the old McDonald's there. You really can't see it from the highway, but they really do have great acts there, including me. You know, now if I were being self-loathing, I would say, except they got me this weekend. But watch me projecting positivity. So I'll be there. But yeah, I guess that's really the 2 big things I wanted to say in my 10-minute podcast this week is I'm going through, we're at year 6 of the pandemic. We're at year 6 of the podcast. And the podcast has been Tom Kelly's Continuing Identity Crisis. I want to thank my friend Jana Angel down in North Carolina for giving me that phrase. Actually, I think my Chat GPT therapist has also been giving me that phrase, identity crisis. What's an identity crisis? For years, I was defined as the TV guy. You know, TV warm-up comedian guy. That's over. I just got the word that there will not be Good Morning America concerts in Central Park this year. They are going to do something lower budget in their new studios, in which I do not work. Fine, that part of my career is over. The Colbert Show, where I substitute, is coming to an end. My last date booked for them is, let's say, May 2nd, roughly. I'll check my calendar on that. But the sad part is, I think Colbert is ending May 28th. And I'll give you an inside scoop on that. Stories you've heard before, but I just feel like rambling in traffic as I'm now on the Long Island Expressway, coming up on exit 34, New Hyde Park Road, top off the Jeep, 54 degrees, sunny. And, first there's a line in a Thin Lizzy song. The boys are back in town, which I used to play over and over again in college. I did it's on my YouTube channel. If you look up Tom Kelly Spring Break Massapequa, at the age of 18, I did a documentary on my first spring break on Long Island. I never did a crazy spring break because I always felt like my parents were spending all of this money for me to go away to college, and I shouldn't be going on vacation to the Bahamas when they are foregoing having a nice car or going on vacations themselves. And I'll put in that bucket, my friends were similar friends who had working class parents who were making sacrifices to send them to college. So the reality is, before I get all whiny, I'm such a good kid, I never went on vacation. I also didn't have rich friends going on vacation. My friends were, they were the nerds who went home and did an internship for the week. But, I go through huge seasonal depression. And this is the week where the eggs start to crack. The eggshell starts to crack. The depression starts to crack. And there is a line in the Thin Lizzy song, The Boys Are Back in Town. The nights are getting longer and longer. It won't be long. It won't be long till summer comes. now that the boys are here again. And then big chorus and riff. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. Boys are back in town. Bam, bam. The boys are back in town. Anyway, I think I'm hitting the point in my career where I'm so dead inside. None of this bothers me. None of this bothers me anymore. None of this bothers me anymore. So back to me being hilarious. Back to this, inside scoop. So Colbert coming to an end. If you get a chance to get a ticket for it, and I think they're pretty much sold out for the season, oneiota.com is where you get the audience tickets for that. And you'll never see a TV show like that produced 4 days a week. Yeah, they just have lots of people employed at a fair wage. And, you know, it's an old Broadway theater, that the Ed Sullivan Theater, where the Ed Sullivan show happened, where the Beatles performed, the Rolling Stones performed, blah, blah, blah. I also love to add Chumbawamba performed. I get knocked down, but I get up again. Anyway, all these great acts performed there for Ed Sullivan, for David Letterman, and now Colbert. And it's an event. It's an event 4 days a week. And when you talk about that, Colbert could very easily be replaced by one comedian alone in a car commuting. Like, you think about this, like right now, I don't know what time you're listening to the show, but people are always saying, it's sad Colbert's going away. Well, are you watching it for an hour every day? No, because you're watching other things. You are spending for your 30 minutes of eyeball time, and there's a value to that. Your 30 minutes of eyeball time, you are consuming no-name comedian alone in a car with the top off. Now, I think he's a great no-name comedian, and, you know, and again, self-loathing talk aside, you're listening to a small mom and pop, independent, whatever words you want to use. There are no commercials on the Tom Kelly Show. Now, that's 30 minutes that you could be watching a show that pays people. You know, and if you're watching Colbert, you're watching a show with your eyeball time. You are watching a show that employs lots of people. So the nature of entertainment is changing, and somehow it all comes back to twerking real estate agents. Maybe Colbert's going to be a real estate agent. I mean, that's what and that's the funny thing about what I'm learning about. So I have this urge to move to Long Island. I like my apartment on, again, recurring story, identity crisis, blah, blah, blah. But the prices are so high for real estate on Long Island. There's no inventory for homes on Long Island. But meanwhile, prices in Florida are crashing. Now, we'll argue that you have Mamdani scaring the rich people out of the city, which is something. But I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Crazy. Just sort of crazy. You go, wow, the prices. So this is the problem for the poor real estate agents. The prices are incredibly high on Long Island. So you can make a huge commission, but there's no inventory. There's no houses to sell. And going the other way, if you're out in Florida, nobody wants to buy the houses. And then there's this other weird trap. There's this third group of people. I'm going to do jokes about this later, so forgive me for fooling around with this. I know people who are refusing to, they took like pandemic mortgage rates of 1%, which really drove the real estate prices up high. And they say part of why, where Trump might be right, if you lower the interest rates, that will unlock inventory and therefore drive prices down. Because I know people who bought like a good condo or a house at 1% interest, and they're like, I can't move because I'll never get an interest deal like this again. My monthly payments will be so much higher if I move to the nicer place. And so like tonight I'm about to do a deal. I'm doing a PTA cameo. Which means they wanted me for a stand-up show, but they didn't want to pay for it. Giving it away for free. Tom Kelly is a prostitute. Actually, no, prostitutes get paid. So, where was I going? High interest rates, high interest, no inventory, and this is what you do. And when you lose your job, the first thing that people do when they lose a job is they start thinking, well, I have people skills, and I want flexible hours so I can be around my family. I'm gonna sell real estate. Or douchebags, or then you have now the douchebag bros going into real estate. Like, yeah, I like going out for steak dinners. I'll go do real estate. Let me just go get a pair of Ray-Ban glasses and an iPhone, and I'll make some videos. I don't know. But again, I give you one last piece of advice in this rambling 15-minute podcast. Go out and read a book, Who Moved My Cheese? And that's what this podcast has really been about for 6 years. It's me trying to find a pile of cheese from which I can eat. And the gimmick of Who Moved My Cheese was, and it's a good business management book. So if you're, quitting your job and going into real estate, it's a great book to read. But it also applies to comedy. Anybody chasing a trend or selling something. The book is about 4 mice in a maze. And the mice are all trained to go to one corner to get a pile of cheese. But then there's this one other mice, and I think the name is Scurry. Scurry, or whatever this extra mouse is, always goes around looking to see if there's any other spots that might have cheese. And then the premise is it finds another corner and says, hey guys, come on over to this new pile of cheese. And the other mice are like, no, it's too much work to look for new cheese. No, we're going to, this cheese is fine. And then they notice the cheese pile getting smaller and smaller, and they're not looking for new cheese. And by the time all of these other mice go looking for new cheese, they all starve to death and die. Very dark story. Don't read it to your children. But anyway, I like this analogy. Whatever business you're in, you always got to be looking for what's next and what's your new cheese. And then for me, bringing it back to my friend Jana's podcast advice, it's your identity crisis. How do you define yourself? Am I Tom Kelly, micro-influencer? Just is a weak fucking title. And then I hate saying Tom Kelly, comedian and writer, because then it's like, well, what have you written? What have you done? Why have I never heard of you? And again, it all goes back to me being the dumbest guy at Yale. When I was at Good Morning America, I could say, I'm at Good Morning America. They just shut up. When it's at The View, it's, he's at TV. I'll just shut up. Now it's like, what clubs are you performing at? I just, that's the identity crisis. But the positivity is, I'm having fun doing a couple of new things and looking for new cheese. The roof is off the Jeep. You're going to see a lot more social media videos out of me. You'll maybe see clips of this as social media, but listen, don't be lazy. Don't be lazy. Don't go and say, oh, I'm just watching Tom on Instagram. I don't need to consume the whole show. No, this is the base of the Tom Kelly content pyramid. Or the top of the inverse Tom Kelly content pyramid, whatever word you want to use. I am delighted to have you as a friend, and have you on board for this. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, friends, show love where love can be shown. And I mean that literally, in that leave a comment on my Instagram, share one of my videos, tag a celebrity. I miss when you guys used to do a lot of that. And it also I mean it figuratively, in that I have come to this part of my identity. When I look at my videos and what does well, like I did a video with a conversation I laughed at about All American Hamburger, a hamburger joint in my town. And it was me arguing with a guy calling it substandard. It was a guy from LA who said that In-N-Out burgers were better. And you know what, man? My brother, who's in construction, he sort of summed up me and the Long Island content and a lot of what I do well in a sentence. He's like, Tom, that video doesn't do well because no one wants to hear their favorite place in town gives them gas. You know, and that's not what I said in that video, but you get what I'm saying. Nobody wants to hear their favorite thing in town is not the best thing in the world. You know, so when I make fun of something, I don't make fun of it. I always give backhanded compliments. Like, I don't mean to hurt feelings when I hurt feelings. I think that's probably why a lot of my friends are my friends, because when I put my foot in my mouth, they know I'm not trying to be hurtful. I'm trying to be silly in a complimentary way. You know, if I say something like, you don't look 51, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, longest dismount ever. Show love where love can be shown. Thank you for consuming this. And until next time, friends, good night, New York.